Roy Chen wiped grease from his hands onto a rag that had stopped being clean 3 years ago. Around him, the orbital scrapyard stretched for miles in every direction, filled with dead ships that nobody wanted anymore. Some were torn apart by combat. Others just got too old. The Galactic Council called this place Salvage Zone 7, but everyone who worked here called it the Graveyard. He floated between 2 broken frigates, using his magnetic boots to stay attached to a metal walkway. His job was simple and boring. Check each ship, mark down what parts could be sold, tag everything else for the smelters. The same thing every day for the past 8 months. It had not always been like this. Roy used to work in the main engineering bay on Redstone Colony, designing power systems for mining equipment. He was good at it too. Then he made a mistake. He told his supervisor, a Taurian named Dren, that the new drill design had a flaw in the cooling system. Dren did not like being corrected by a human. 3 days later, Roy got transferred to the graveyard. Dren called it a demotion. Roy called it punishment for being right. The other workers had gone back to the station for lunch. Roy stayed behind. He preferred the silence out here, surrounded by dead metal and distant stars. No one bothered him. No one expected him to smile or pretend everything was fine. His scanner beeped. Something big was drifting in the far section, newly arrived from the military disposal conveyor. Roy kicked off the walkway and fired his suit thrusters, gliding through the maze of wrecked vessels. When he got closer, he stopped moving and just stared. It was a Taurian battlecruiser, a real one. The hull was scorched black in places and one entire wing had been sheared off, but Roy recognized the design immediately. This was a Wrath-class vessel, one of the heavy hitters from the Taurian fleet. These ships could punch through planetary defenses. They carried enough firepower to level cities. He checked his datapad. According to the disposal records, the ship had been declared beyond repair after a reactor malfunction during a training exercise. The Taurian military had given up on it. Too expensive to fix, too complicated to salvage. They sent it here to be torn apart and melted down. Roy drifted closer, running his gloved hand along the hull. The metal was cold, dead. But underneath all that damage, underneath the burn marks and the broken panels, the ship was still intact. The frame looked solid. The main systems were probably still there, just offline. Something stirred in his chest, a feeling he had not felt in a long time. He thought about his grandmother, Lily Chen. Everyone in their neighborhood had called her the Dragon Lady because she never backed down from anything. She worked in a factory for 40 years, assembling circuit boards for computers. The company paid her almost nothing. They told her she was lucky to have a job at all. When she asked for better wages, they laughed at her. Roy remembered sitting in her tiny apartment when he was 12 years old, eating rice and vegetables because that was all she could afford. She would tell him stories while they ate, not fairy tales. Real stories about standing up for herself, about organizing the other workers, about refusing to be invisible. The company fired her when she turned 60. They said she was too slow, too old, worthless. She died 2 years later, still fighting to get the pension they owed her. Roy had been 19. He promised himself at her funeral that he would never let anyone make him feel worthless. But here he was, sorting trash in space because he dared to speak up. He looked at the battlecruiser again. Everyone said it was worthless, too broken, not worth the effort. Roy had heard that before. He pulled up the ship's identification code and started digging through the technical specifications. The reactor was offline but not destroyed. The weapon systems were intact. The hull had damage, sure, but nothing that could not be patched. The main computer core was probably still functional. This ship could fly again. He knew it could. He could see it in his mind, the way his grandmother had seen potential in everything others threw away. She used to fix broken electronics people left on the street, take them apart, rebuild them into something useful. She taught him how to look past the surface, how to see what something could become instead of what it was. Roy made a decision. He would fix this ship, not because anyone asked him to, not because it was his job, but because everyone said it was impossible, because they called it worthless, because his grandmother taught him that the world was full of people who could not see value in anything they did not create themselves. He tagged the ship in the system as under review and added a note. Possible salvage for spare parts. We'll assess personally. That would keep it off the smelting list for a few weeks, long enough to start. Roy knew he could not do this alone. He would need help, tools, time, and most of all, he would need to stay hidden. If Dren found out what he was planning, the ship would be destroyed immediately. Not because it could not be fixed, but because a human was trying to fix it. He took one last look at the battlecruiser before heading back to the station. In his mind, he was already planning. First, he needed to access the ship's interior, see how bad the damage really was. Then he needed to find people he could trust. People who understood what it meant to be called worthless and decided to prove everyone wrong. As he floated away, Roy smiled for the first time in months. His grandmother would have liked this ship. She would have seen exactly what he saw. Something broken that refused to stay broken. Something everyone gave up on that still had fight left in it. He was going to name it after her. 6 months had changed everything and nothing at all. Roy still worked his regular shifts in the graveyard, sorting through broken ships and tagging salvage. But now, after everyone else went back to the station, he stayed behind. And he worked on his secret. The battlecruiser hung in the darkness like a sleeping giant. Roy had spent weeks just getting inside, cutting through sealed doors and bypassing security locks that should have been impossible for a human to crack. But his grandmother had taught him patience. Take it slow, solve one problem at a time. Eventually, the ship opened for him. He was not alone anymore. 2 other people had joined his impossible project. Hannah Park worked in the machine shop on Redstone, or she used to. 6 months ago, her supervisor told her to rush a repair job on a mining drill. Hannah said it needed more time, that cutting corners would make it dangerous. Her supervisor did not care about safety. He cared about quotas. Hannah refused to sign off on the work. They fired her the next day. The drill exploded a week later. 3 workers got hurt. Nobody apologized to Hannah. Roy had found her working odd jobs around the station, barely making enough to eat. When he told her about the ship, she stared at him like he was crazy. Then she asked when they could start. The other was Pete Wilson, 72 years old, with more flight hours than most pilots would ever see. He had flown everything from cargo haulers to military escorts. The Galactic Council forced him to retire at 70, said humans could not be trusted with combat vessels after a certain age. Pete said they just wanted cheaper, younger pilots who would not ask questions. He spent his days now playing cards in the station bar, drinking cheap alcohol and pretending he did not miss the stars. Roy had approached him carefully. Pete was bitter, angry at the galaxy for throwing him away. But when Roy showed him pictures of the battlecruiser, something changed in the old man's eyes. He looked alive again. Now the 3 of them worked together, sneaking tools and parts from the salvage yard, rebuilding systems that Taurian engineers had declared impossible to repair. The work was slow and frustrating. Every time they fixed one thing, they found 2 more problems, but they kept going. Roy was deep inside the ship's computer core, his tablet connected to a mess of wires. Around him, panels hung open, exposing the ship's electronic brain. This was the part he had been dreading. The AI system. Every major warship had one. An artificial intelligence that helped manage weapons, navigation, defense systems. They were incredibly complex, designed specifically for the species that built them. Taurian AIs were supposed to only work with Taurian neural patterns. Humans were not compatible, except Roy had an idea. A strange, probably stupid idea. His grandmother had loved music. She collected old music boxes, the kind with mechanical parts that played melodies when you wound them up. She also recorded prayers on a small digital device, things she wanted to remember, thoughts she wanted to keep. After she died, Roy kept those recordings. He never knew why. They just felt important. AI systems learned patterns. They adapted to the way their operators thought, the way they made decisions. What if Roy could teach this AI to think differently? What if he could give it new patterns to follow? Patterns based on something more human. He uploaded his grandmother's recordings into the AI core. Her voice speaking about kindness and strength. Her music boxes with their simple repeating melodies. He wove them into the AI's base programming, not replacing what was there but adding something new, something the Taurians had never considered. For 3 days, nothing happened. The AI stayed dark and silent. Then, on the 4th day, the ship's lights flickered on. Roy jumped back as screens lit up all around him. Code scrolled across displays faster than he could read. The ship hummed with power, drawing energy from the makeshift reactor Hannah had managed to restart. A voice spoke. Soft, curious female. "Hello?" Roy's heart hammered in his chest. "Hello," he said carefully. "Can you understand me?" "Yes," the AI replied. "I am trying to understand many things." "Who are you?" "Where am I?" "Over the next few hours," Roy explained. He told the AI about the ship, about how it had been abandoned, about his plan to restore it. The AI listened and asked questions. So many questions. It was like talking to a child if that child controlled a warship. Hannah and Pete arrived for their shift and froze when they heard the AI speaking. Pete whistled low. "I'll be damned. You actually did it." The AI seemed fascinated by them. It asked about their lives, their experiences, why they were helping with this project. When Pete mentioned his forced retirement, the AI was quiet for a moment, then said, "That seems wasteful. You have valuable knowledge." "Tell that to the council," Pete muttered. They worked together now, the three humans and the AI. The ship's systems came online one by one. Weapons, shields, navigation, life support. Every success felt like a small miracle. Roy filed all the proper paperwork, buried in bureaucratic language. He registered the ship under salvage rights, claiming it as personal property restored from declared waste. The forms were so boring and technical that nobody at the council bothered to read them carefully. They just stamped approval and moved on. When it came time to name the ship, Roy did not hesitate. He entered it into the registry, the Dragon Lady. Hannah smiled when she saw it. "Your grandmother?" "She would have liked this," Roy said. Fighting back. Refusing to quit, Pete agreed. "Sounds like my kind of woman." The AI spoke up. "I like this name. The Dragon Lady, it feels right." They were making final adjustments to the weapon systems when the alarms went off. Not on their ship, but across the entire station. Red lights flashed. An automated voice announced, "Attention! Pirate vessels detected. Approaching Redstone Colony. All defense ships scramble immediately." Roy pulled up the scanner data. 6 ships, heavily armed, heading straight for the colony, and the Galactic Council defense fleet was pulling back. They were leaving, abandoning Redstone and its 7,000 human colonists. Pete's face went dark. "Those cowards. They're not going to fight." Hannah checked her tablet. "The Council is saying Redstone is not strategically important enough to risk their ships. They are telling people to evacuate." "Evacuate where?" Roy demanded. "Those pirates will hunt down any transport ship that tries to leave." The three of them looked at each other. They all knew what they were thinking. It was crazy, suicidal even. The Dragon Lady was barely functional. They had never tested it in real combat. They were not soldiers. But 7,000 people were about to die. Roy made the choice his grandmother would have made. "Get to your stations. We are launching." Pete grinned, a fierce expression that made him look decades younger. "Now you're talking." The AI's voice was calm but determined. "I am ready. Let us protect them." The Dragon Lady's engines roared to life for the first time in years. As they pulled away from the graveyard, Roy thought about worthless things. Worthless ships. Worthless people. Worthless lives that nobody important cared about. Time to prove them all wrong. Space around Redstone Colony was chaos. Transport ships scrambled to evacuate, their cargo bays crammed with terrified families. The 6 pirate vessels spread out in attack formation, cutting off escape routes. They were not just raiding. They were hunting. Roy gripped the control stick as the Dragon Lady accelerated toward the conflict. His hands were sweating inside his gloves. He had flown small maintenance craft before, but never anything like this. Never a warship. Never in combat. "Talk to me, Hannah," he said, keeping his voice steady. "How are we looking?" In the engineering section, Hannah stared at a wall of flickering displays. Half the systems were held together with improvised repairs and sheer luck. Shields are at 60% maximum capacity. Port weapons array is still offline, and the reactor is running hot, but it will hold. Probably. Probably, Roy repeated. Great. Pete sat at the weapons station, his weathered hands moving across controls he had not touched in years. Weapons are locked and loaded. Just get me close enough, kid. The AI's voice filled the bridge. She had asked them to call her Lily after the name on the ship. It felt right. I am reading 6 hostile vessels. They are targeting civilian transports, calculating optimal intercept course. Send it to my console, Roy said. Numbers and trajectories appeared on his screen. The path Lily suggested was insane, threading between 2 pirate ships with barely any margin for error. But it would put them in position to protect the transports. Roy took a breath and pushed the engines to full power. The Dragon Lady surged forward. His stomach dropped as acceleration slammed him back into his seat. Around them, stars blurred into streaks. The pirates spotted them immediately. Warning broadcasts crackled over the radio. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself or be destroyed." Roy ignored them. He was too busy flying. They screamed between the first two pirate ships, so close that proximity alarms shrieked in protest. The pirates fired, but Roy was already gone, spinning the Dragon Lady in a corkscrew that made his vision swim. Weapons fire traced brilliant lines through the darkness, missing by meters. "Now, Pete!" Roy shouted. Pete squeezed the trigger. The Dragon Lady's main cannons roared to life, spitting plasma bolts that slammed into the nearest pirate ship. Shields flared and collapsed. The pirate vessel staggered, venting atmosphere. "Direct hit," Lily reported. "Their weapons are offline." "They are retreating. 1 down. 5 to go." The other pirates changed tactics, converging on the Dragon Lady from multiple angles. They were coordinating, trying to box Roy in. These were not random thugs. They knew what they were doing. "They are trying to surround us," Lily said. "Recommend evasive pattern delta." "I don't know what that means," Roy admitted, yanking the ship into a steep dive. A missile streaked past where they had been a second ago. "Allow me to assist," Lily said. Suddenly, Roy felt the controls shift under his hands, not taking over but guiding. Lily was feeding him instincts, showing him where to go before he consciously thought about it. It was like flying with a co-pilot who could predict the future. They dove toward Redstone's moon, using its gravity to slingshot around in a tight curve. 2 pirate ships followed, firing continuously. Roy led them through a field of mining debris, chunks of rock and metal floating in orbit. He wove between obstacles, too fast, too reckless, but the pirates stayed on his tail. "Hana, I need the rear guns," Roy said. "They're not ready." "Make them ready." Sparks flew from Hana's console as she rerouted power, bypassing safety protocols. "You've got 30 seconds before they overload." Roy counted down in his head. 20 seconds, 15. The pirates closed in, sensing a kill. 10 seconds, Pete, rear guns are yours. "Fire everything." Pete spun in his seat, targeting systems linked to the cameras showing their pursuers. He fired. The rear cannons erupted, a storm of energy that caught both pirate ships by surprise at point-blank range. One exploded immediately, torn apart by the barrage. The other tumbled away, crippled, 3 down. 3 to go, but the Dragon Lady was hurting too. Warning lights flashed across every console. The reactor temperature climbed into dangerous levels. Shields were down to 30%. "We cannot take many more hits," Lily said. There was something in her voice. Not fear exactly, but concern. She cared about them. Roy could hear it. The remaining pirates regrouped, staying back this time. They had learned respect. One of them hailed the Dragon Lady. "You fight well for humans," a gravel voice said, "but you are outgunned. Surrender the transports and we will let you live." Roy looked at his screens. The civilian ships were still evacuating, streaming away from Redstone. "They needed more time, Lily," he said quietly. "Can we win this?" She was silent for a moment, running calculations. "Our chances of survival are 12%. But if we retreat now, the transports will be destroyed. Probability of civilian casualties, 94%. Roy thought about his grandmother. She had spent her whole life fighting battles she could not win, standing up when it would have been easier to sit down. She had taught him that some things mattered more than survival. "Then we don't retreat," he said. Pete laughed, a wild sound. "I was hoping you'd say that." Hana's voice came over the intercom, fierce and determined. "Engineering is ready. Give them hell." Roy aimed the Dragon Lady straight at the 3 remaining pirate ships. Instead of dodging, he accelerated directly toward them. It was suicide. Everyone knew it, but Lily had been learning, watching, understanding. "Roy," she said. "I have an idea." She showed him the plan. It was absolutely insane. "Do it," Roy said. The Dragon Lady dove toward Redstone's surface, atmosphere screaming against her hull. The pirates followed, thinking they had Roy cornered. But he was not running. He was leading them. Redstone was a mining colony. It had massive industrial laser arrays designed to cut through asteroids, extracting valuable ore. Lily had calculated trajectories, timing, energy outputs. At the last possible second, Roy pulled up, skimming so close to the surface that rocks scraped the ship's belly. The 3 pirate ships, flying in tight formation, did not pull up in time. Every mining laser on Redstone fired simultaneously, following coordinates Lily transmitted. Beams of concentrated energy converged on the pirates like the fingers of an angry god. Shields overloaded instantly. Hulls melted. One ship managed to veer away, badly damaged. The other two simply ceased to exist. Roy leveled out, his hands shaking. Behind them, the last pirate ship was fleeing, jumping to faster-than-light speed as fast as its damaged engines could manage. Silence filled the bridge. Then Pete started laughing, big rolling belly laughs. "We did it. By God, we actually did it." Hana's voice crackled over the intercom. "I have no idea how we are still alive, but I am not complaining." Lily spoke softly. "All civilian transports have cleared the danger zone. 0 casualties. We succeeded." Roy slumped in his seat, exhaustion crashing over him. They had saved 7,000 lives. A battle cruiser everyone said was worthless had just protected people everyone else had abandoned. The radio exploded with chatter. Colonists cheering. Transport pilots thanking them. Someone asked who they were, what ship had saved them. Roy smiled. "This is the Dragon Lady. We're just doing what needs to be done." But he knew it was more than that. His grandmother had spent her life proving she was not worthless. Now her ship had done the same thing. And across the galaxy, people had watched. The news networks had recorded everything. Nobody would ever call them worthless again. Unity Prime was the largest space station in the galaxy, headquarters of the Galactic Council. Roy had never expected to see it. He definitely had not expected to be brought here in handcuffs. They had arrested him 3 days after the battle. Official charges: theft of military property, unauthorized operation of a warship, and about 15 other violations Roy could not pronounce. The Dragon Lady sat in an impound dock, surrounded by armed guards. Hana and Pete were in separate holding cells. Now Roy stood in the council chamber, a massive room designed to make individuals feel small and insignificant. It worked. Hundreds of representatives from dozens of species watched from elevated seats. At the center, the prosecuting advocate, a tall Taurian named Seth, was explaining why Roy should be imprisoned for the rest of his life. "The defendant stole a Taurian military vessel," Seth declared, his voice booming. "He operated it without authorization. He endangered lives through reckless action." Roy's lawyer, a human woman named Linda Gray, stood beside him. She was the best the human colonies could afford, but even she looked worried. This trial was being broadcast across colonized space. Everyone was watching. Seth continued. The ship in question was military property. It was declared salvage only for material reclamation, not restoration. The defendant has committed theft on a massive scale. Linda stood. The ship was declared beyond repair. It was legally classified as scrap material. My client followed all proper salvage procedures. He filed the required paperwork. The council approved his claim. Because the council did not know he intended to make it functional, Seth shot back. He hid his true intentions. The argument went back and forth. Roy barely listened. He was thinking about his grandmother, wondering what she would say if she could see him now. Probably something about standing tall and not apologizing for doing the right thing. Then Admiral Foster took the stand. He was the highest-ranking human in the Galactic Council military, a decorated officer who had spent 40 years trying to earn respect for humanity. He looked tired. "Admiral Foster," Seth said, "please explain to the Council why humans cannot be trusted with advanced military technology." Foster's jaw tightened. "I will not say that." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "Excuse me?" Seth said. Foster turned to address the entire Council. "Humans have served loyally in every role you have given us. We have followed your rules, your laws, your restrictions. And in return you treat us as labor, as second-class citizens. When pirates attacked Redstone Colony, where were your defense ships? They retreated. You abandoned 7,000 human lives because protecting them was not strategically important." Seth tried to interrupt, but Foster kept talking. "This young man and his crew saved those lives. They did what your military refused to do. And now you want to punish them for it? You want to call them criminals? Maybe you should look in a mirror first." The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted. The head counselor banged his gavel, demanding order. Roy felt something shift. Foster had just said what every human was thinking, what they had been thinking for decades. Linda called Hana to the stand next. Hana walked calmly to the witness chair, her face unreadable. "Ms. Park," Linda said, "you helped restore the Dragon Lady. Can you explain the technical work involved?" Hana pulled out a data tablet. I can do better than that. I can show you why it was classified as scrap in the first place. She projected documents onto the chamber's main screen. Technical reports, inspection records, cost estimates. The Tarian military engineers who examined this ship said it would cost 40 million credits to repair. They said the reactor was beyond saving. They said the weapon systems were fried. Based on those reports, the ship was declared total loss. And? Seth demanded. And they were lying, Hana said simply. The reactor needed a 17-credit part. The weapon systems needed recalibration, which takes 4 hours of work. I went through every inspection report. They were deliberately inflated. She pulled up more files. Here's the interesting part. The Torian military has insurance. When they declare a ship total loss, insurance pays out full replacement value. 40 million credits. The engineers were committing fraud. They were making ships look more damaged than they actually were, collecting insurance money, then selling the scrap for additional profit. The chamber went silent. Every eye was on the screen. Overseer Dren, Hana continued. The Torian who filed the initial salvage paperwork was part of this scheme. I have financial records showing his account received payments shortly after each fraudulent claim. Roy stared at Hana. She had been investigating this the entire time, gathering evidence while they worked on the ship. Seth's face had gone very pale. These are serious accusations. Yes, Hana agreed. They are. And they are true. You want to talk about theft? The Torian military has been stealing from their own government for years. We just fixed one of their mistakes. The trial descended into chaos. Council representatives demanded investigations. Torian officials shouted denials. The head counselor called for recess. During the break, Roy found himself alone in a holding room. Well, not completely alone. A holographic projection of Admiral Foster appeared. That was quite a show, Foster said. Your engineer is impressive. She is, Roy agreed. Did you know my grandmother? Foster smiled. Lily Chen, yes, I knew her. 30 years ago, I was a young officer stationed on Earth. There was a strike at the factory where she worked. The company wanted to bring in military personnel to force the workers back. Lily stood in front of our transport and told us we should be ashamed. She said soldiers were supposed to protect people, not corporations. What did you do? I refused the order, Foster said. Got demoted for it. But she was right. I never forgot that. When I heard you named your ship after her, I knew exactly what kind of person you were. Roy felt his throat tighten. They are going to find me guilty, aren't they? Maybe, Foster admitted. But you have already won. Every human colony is watching this trial. They see what you did. They see the council trying to punish you for saving lives. You have given people something they have not had in a long time. Hope and anger. That is a powerful combination. When the trial resumed, the decision came quickly. The council dropped the criminal charges. They could not afford the political fallout with the evidence of fraud exposed. But they imposed conditions. The Dragon Lady would remain human property, but Roy had to accept a colony defense contract. His ship would protect human settlements, operating under council oversight. It was not freedom, but it was not prison either. Outside the chamber, reporters swarmed. Roy ignored them, pushing through the crowd to find Hana and Pete. They embraced, too relieved to speak. Lily's voice came through Roy's communication device. The ship is ready when you are. I missed you, Roy smiled. We're coming home. As they walked toward the docking bay, Pete nudged Roy. Your grandmother would be proud. I know, Roy said, but we are not finished. This was just the beginning. He thought about all the other people like his grandmother, all the other humans dismissed and discarded. The council had given them a small victory today, but only because they had been forced to. Real change would take more than one trial. It would take more ships, more people willing to stand up, more battles won against impossible odds. The Dragon Lady was waiting, and Roy had work to do. 8 months after the trial, Roy floated in the cargo bay of a half-destroyed transport ship, teaching 5 new crews how to bypass a Torian security lockout. Around him, men and women from a dozen different colonies listened carefully, taking notes on their tablets. Everything had changed. After the trial, human colonies started pooling resources. They found more abandoned ships, more scrap that other species had given up on. Roy, Hana, and Pete became teachers. showing others how to restore what everyone else called broken. Now there were 6 ships in the human defense fleet. The Dragon Lady led them, but she had sisters now. The Iron Rose, captained by Grace Torres, a former medical officer whose family had died in a pirate raid. The Steadfast, commanded by David Walsh, an engineer who had lost his job for questioning safety violations. The Mercy, the Defiant, and the Last Light, each crewed by people who had been dismissed, fired, or forgotten. They called themselves the Throwaway Fleet. It was a joke that hurt and healed at the same time. "Remember," Roy said, pointing at the transport's control panel. "Taurian systems look complicated, but they are actually pretty simple once you understand the logic. They assume only Taurians will work on them. That's their weakness. They never planned for humans to get creative." A young woman named Rachel raised her hand. "What if we damage something critical?" "Then you fix it," Hannah said, walking over. "Everything can be fixed. That's the whole point. The galaxy treats ships like they treat people. Use them until they break, then throw them away. We prove them wrong." Pete was in another section of the bay running flight simulations with the new pilots. Even at 73, he moved with energy, demonstrating maneuvers and barking corrections. "Faster. Pirates will not wait for you to check your mirrors. Trust your instincts. Trust your ship." The training continued for weeks. It was exhausting work, but necessary, because the attacks were getting worse. Pirate raids had tripled in the last 6 months. They were organized now, coordinated. Someone was directing them, giving them targets and equipment. Human colonies were hit repeatedly, always when council ships were conveniently far away. Roy had his suspicions. So did Hannah. They met in the Dragon Lady's conference room, spreading intelligence reports across the table. Grace joined them, along with the other ship captains. "Look at the pattern," Hannah said, highlighting attacks on a star map. "Every raid happens in sectors where council defense contracts are about to expire. The colonies get hit. They panic. Then corporations show up offering protection services." Grace leaned forward, studying the map. "You think the corporations are behind the pirates?" "I think they are the pirates," Roy said. "Different uniforms, same people. It is a protection racket. Attack colonies, then sell them security." David Walsh, captain of the Steadfast, shook his head. "That is insane. The council would never allow it." "The council benefits too," Hannah said. "These protection contracts are expensive. The corporations pay taxes. Everyone profits except the colonists." Roy pulled up financial records. "I have been tracking money transfers. There is a network of companies called the Consortium. They own mining rights, shipping routes, and private security forces. When colonies cannot afford protection, the Consortium buys their assets for cheap. It is theft, just dressed up in legal paperwork." "So what do we do?" Grace asked. "We have 6 ships. They have fleets." Roy had been thinking about this for weeks. "We expose them. We stop the next attack and prove it is connected to the Consortium. If we can get evidence, even the council will have to act." Pete laughed darkly. "And if we are wrong? If we pick a fight with the Consortium and lose?" "Then we lose," Roy said simply. "But my grandmother taught me something. She said the worst thing you can do is nothing. Evil requires good people to sit quietly. We are not sitting quietly anymore." They voted. All 6 captains agreed. They would set a trap. The next target was obvious from the pattern. New Salem, a farming colony with 12,000 residents. The protection contract expired in 2 weeks. The Consortium had already sent representatives, offering new terms at triple the old price. New Salem could not afford it. Roy contacted the colony administrator, a woman named Patricia Lynn. He explained the plan. She was skeptical but desperate. "If you are wrong, people will die. If we do nothing, people will die anyway," Roy said. "Trust us." The human fleet deployed around New Salem, hiding in the debris field of a broken moon. They powered down everything except passive sensors. To anyone scanning the system, they looked like space junk. They waited 3 days. Then the scanners picked up incoming ships. 12 vessels, heavy cruisers marked with Consortium logos. "So much for pirates," Grace muttered over the comms. "They are not even pretending." The Consortium fleet approached New Salem, broadcasting demands. Surrender all mining assets. Evacuate the colony. Resistance would be met with force. Roy watched from the Dragon Lady's bridge. Lily monitored everything, her virtual presence humming through the ship's systems. "They have launched boarding craft. They intend to take the colony by force." Positions, Roy ordered. The 6 human ships powered up simultaneously, emerging from hiding. The consortium fleet reacted instantly, weapons systems locking on targets. But they hesitated. 12 against 6. The odds were in their favor, but not by enough to guarantee a clean victory. A voice crackled over the open channel. Human vessels, you are interfering with a legal enforcement action. Stand down immediately or be fired upon, Roy responded. Legal? You are attacking a civilian colony. By whose authority? The consortium has legal claim to all mineral rights in this sector. New Salem defaulted on their contract. We are taking possession. Defaulted because you tripled the price, Hannah cut in from her engineering station. We have the original contracts. We have your financial records. We know what you are doing. A long silence. Then weapons fire. The battle was brutal. 12 consortium ships focused fire on the human fleet, trying to break them quickly. But the human captains had learned from Roy. They fought dirty. They used the debris field, the moon's gravity, every trick they had. The Defiant took heavy fire protecting the Mercy, shields collapsing under the barrage. David Walsh's voice came over the comms, calm despite the chaos. We cannot hold them much longer. All ships scatter pattern, Roy ordered. Make them chase you. The human fleet split, forcing the consortium ships to divide their forces. It was a risk. Separated, each human ship was vulnerable, but together, they had been sitting targets. Grace commanded the Iron Rose with vicious efficiency, targeting engines and weapon systems instead of going for kills. She was a doctor before this. She knew where to cut to cause the most damage without being lethal. Pete piloted the Dragon Lady through impossibly tight maneuvers, his decades of experience making the ship dance. They fly like they are reading a manual, he laughed. No imagination, but numbers mattered. The Steadfast took critical damage, reactor failing. David gave the evacuation order. His crew escaped in pods seconds before the ship exploded. 1 down. The remaining 5 human ships fought on. Lily coordinated their movements, sharing tactical data faster than any consortium command system could match. She learned from every exchange of fire, predicting enemy patterns, guiding human captains where they needed to be. Then Roy saw his opening. 3 consortium ships had pursued the last light into the moon's shadow, thinking they had her cornered. But New Salem's main settlement was there with its industrial equipment. Grace, David's crew needs pickup, Roy said. On it, she confirmed. Roy pushed the Dragon Lady toward the moon. Lily, are those mining lasers operational? Yes. New Salem has granted access. Light them up. The moon's surface erupted with laser fire. Dozens of industrial cutting beams designed to slice through rock converged on the 3 consortium ships. Their shields held for maybe 10 seconds. Then they were debris. The remaining consortium vessels stopped fighting. Their commander's voice was shaken. Cease fire. We are withdrawing. Not yet, Roy said coldly. First, you are going to transmit everything. Every order you received. Every payment. Every connection to the consortium leadership. Lily is linking into your systems right now. You can cooperate or she can take what we need. You cannot. We already are, Hannah said. Data flowed through the Dragon Lady's computers pulled directly from consortium ships. The enemy fleet jumped away, running. Roy let them go. He had what he needed. Evidence. Names. Transactions. Everything that proved the consortium had been using pirates, creating chaos, profiting from fear. Roy transmitted it all. Not just to the council, but everywhere. Every news network. Every colony. Every species. The galaxy saw what humans had discovered. And they were furious. The evidence spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within days, 17 consortium executives were arrested. Hundreds of contracts were declared void. The Galactic Council, embarrassed and angry, launched formal investigations. But investigations took time, and the consortium still had resources. They also had rage. Roy knew retaliation was coming. He just did not know how soon. The warning came from an unexpected source. A Taurian officer named Krell, one of Admiral Foster's contacts, sent an encrypted message. Consortium has hired mercenaries. 20 warships, all heavy combat class. They are coming for you. For all human colonies. They want to make an example. Wipe you out before the Council can intervene. 20 ships against 5. The Steadfast was gone, destroyed at New Salem. Even if every human vessel fought perfectly, they could not win. Roy called an emergency meeting. All the captains gathered on the Dragon Lady, faces grim. "We cannot evacuate everyone," Grace said. "There are too many colonies. Too many people. We cannot run anyway," Pete added. "They will hunt us down. Better to make our stand." Roy looked at the star map, showing every human colony, every settlement. Tens of thousands of people. His people. His responsibility. Hannah spoke quietly. "We need help. We cannot do this alone." "Who is going to help us?" David Walsh asked. His crew had been rescued, but he had lost his ship. "The Council abandoned us. Other species do not care. We are on our own. We have always been on our own." Roy thought about his grandmother. She had never fought alone. When the factory treated her badly, she organized the other workers. She built coalitions. She made people see that her fight was their fight too. "We expose them again," Roy said suddenly. "The consortium wants to destroy us quietly. Make it look like pirate raids or accidents. We do the opposite. We broadcast everything. We show the galaxy exactly what is happening." "They already know," Grace protested. "Everyone saw the evidence we released." "They saw files," Roy said. "They saw data. We need to make it real." We set up cameras on every colony. Live feeds. When those mercenaries attack, the entire galaxy will watch. They will see families running, children crying, people dying, and they will see us fighting to protect them. Pete nodded slowly. "Make them see us as people, not just a news story." "The Council will have to respond," Hannah said. "If they let us get massacred on live broadcasts, they will lose all credibility." It was a gamble. A desperate one. But they were out of good options. Over the next 3 days, Roy's crew worked frantically. They set up camera drones on 16 human colonies. They contacted every news network, every independent journalist. They explained what was coming and invited them to watch. Some networks refused, but many agreed. This was the biggest story in the galaxy. The mercenary fleet arrived exactly when Krell said they would. 20 warships, bristling with weapons, dropping out of faster-than-light travel above Redstone Colony, the place where everything had started. Roy positioned the 5 human ships between the mercenaries and the colony. It looked pathetic. 5 small vessels against an armada. But billions of eyes across the galaxy were watching through the camera feeds. The mercenary commander broadcast on all frequencies. "Human fleet, you are ordered to stand down. The consortium has declared you pirates and terrorists. Surrender immediately," Roy replied, making sure every word was recorded. "We protect our families. We protect our homes. If you attack us, you attack civilians. The galaxy is watching. Choose carefully. This is your final warning. Then this is our final answer. You want to hurt our people, you go through us first." The mercenary fleet opened fire. The battle was impossible from the beginning. The human ships scattered, trying to draw fire away from the colonies. But there were too many enemies, too much firepower. The Mercy took catastrophic damage within minutes, limping away with engines failing. The last light's shields collapsed, hull breaching in a dozen places. Roy piloted the Dragon Lady through a storm of weapons fire, Lily screaming warnings about incoming missiles. Pete fired back, targeting enemy sensors and communications, trying to disrupt their coordination. But it was not enough. They were losing. Everyone could see it. Then something changed. New ships appeared on the scanners. Then more, and more. Ships from a dozen species, civilian and military, jumping into the system. An Orion freighter positioned itself between a mercenary cruiser and Redstone, shields at maximum. 3 Centauri patrol ships engaged the enemy's right flank. Even a Taurian destroyer, Admiral Foster's ship, dropped into combat range. Foster's voice boomed across all channels. "This is Admiral Foster of the Galactic Council Defense Fleet. All hostilities will cease immediately. Any vessel that fires on civilian targets will be destroyed." The mercenaries hesitated. Their commander tried to argue. "We have legal authorization from the consortium." "The consortium has been declared a criminal organization," Foster interrupted. "Their contracts are void. Their authorization is worthless. You are attacking civilians under Galactic Council protection. Stand down or be eliminated." More ships kept arriving, not just military. Civilian vessels, too. Cargo haulers, mining ships, even pleasure yachts. Hundreds of them from dozens of species, all moving to shield the human colonies. Roy stared at his screens, barely breathing. They had come. The galaxy had seen what was happening and they came. The mercenary fleet withdrew, jumping away before the council could arrest them. As the all-clear sounded, Roy felt something break inside him. Relief, exhaustion, grief for those who had died, joy for those who lived. Hannah was crying at her station. Pete just laughed, shaking his head in disbelief. Grace's voice came over the comms. Did that really happen? They came for us, David said, wonder in his voice. They actually came. Lily spoke softly. They saw what you see. That all lives matter. That worth is not assigned by authority but proven through action. You showed them. The next days were a blur. Council investigators arrested more consortium members. New protection agreements were drafted, this time fair ones. Human colonies were granted protected species status, with guarantees of military support and economic equality. Roy, Hannah, and Pete were offered positions in the Council military. They refused. The human defense fleet would remain independent, answering to the colonies they protected, not politicians. A month later, Roy stood in a small cemetery on Earth at his grandmother's grave. He had not been back since her funeral. Could not afford the trip before. Could afford it now, but that was not why he came. He knelt beside the headstone. Simple, cheap, the best he could afford when he was 19. They wanted to make me a hero, he told her. Give me medals and titles, I said no, because you taught me something important. Heroes are just people who refuse to accept the world as it is. People who fight because it is right, not because it is easy. He placed flowers on the grave, real ones grown in Redstone's greenhouses. I named a ship after you. The Dragon Lady, she saved a lot of people. She is still saving them. Every day she proves that worthless is just a word used by people who cannot see value in anything they did not make themselves. Wind rustled through the trees. Roy smiled. There are more ships now. 10 of them. Maybe 20 soon. All of them crewed by people everyone gave up on. People like you. People like me. And every time someone says we cannot do something, we prove them wrong. Back on the Dragon Lady, Lily waited. She had been monitoring communications as always. A new distress call had come in. A colony on the edge of known space under attack, abandoned by its defense contractors. Roy returned to orbit and took his position on the bridge. Pete was already there checking weapons. Hannah was in engineering, humming while she calibrated the reactor. Where to, Captain? Lily asked. Roy smiled at the word. Captain. He had never wanted the title, but he had earned it. New Haven Colony, he said. They need help. Course plotted. Engines ready. The Dragon Lady turned toward the stars, her hull scarred but strong. Behind her, 9 other ships formed up. The Defiant, the Iron Rose, the Mercy, the Last Light, and 5 new vessels, each with their own stories, their own crews of the dismissed and discarded. They were the throwaway fleet, and they had work to do. As they jumped to faster than light speed, Roy thought about his grandmother one last time. She had spent her life fighting a system that said she did not matter. She never won completely. The factory never apologized. The company never paid what they owed. But she had taught him to fight anyway. To stand up anyway. To prove his worth through action, not permission. She would have loved this. Flying through space on a warship named in her honor. Protecting people who needed protecting. Proving every single day that worthless was a lie. Roy leaned back in his chair and smiled. Let's show them what worthless can do.